Good evening. I'm Patty Howland, and I'd like to welcome you to another weekly word for women. I am, well, first of all, I'm not wearing my glasses tonight because I was experiencing a strange reflection that was really distracting and annoying. So if you're wondering why I didn't get contacts, I'm just not wearing my glasses. I'm sitting here in another part of my kitchen, and it really has absolutely nothing to do with tonight's word. It's just that we haven't been here before, and I've been trying to go around and show you different places in the farmhouse that I'm blessed to be living in, and so here we are. Before we get started, I would like to remind you or let you know, if you didn't watch last week's video, that we are starting a new study for women on February 8th. It will be via Zoom, so it'll be easy to get to. You just have to turn on your computer or your phone. You don't have to drive in the dark or anything. We're going to be looking at the person and the work of the Holy Spirit in us using the book Jesus in Me by Anne Graham Lotz. And there are links on the women's page of the church website for the books. You will need to order both the book and the study guide ahead of time. And also, please let me know if you're planning to join us so that I can send you the link for the Zoom meeting. I have heard from a few of you since last week that are going to be joining us, and I'm excited about that, and I hope that a few more of you will think about it also. So if this is something that's of interest to you, please let me know and go ahead and get your books, and we'll plan to see you on February 8th for that new study. The word we're going to be looking at tonight was suggested to me by one of our watchers, and it's the word humility. And when I looked it up, it just said a state of being humble. So I looked up humble. And humble says not proud or haughty, not arrogant or assertive, reflecting, expressing, or offered in a spirit of deference or submission. And then I also looked up the word proud, and it says having or displaying excessive self-esteem. So I thought we'd start with the results of not having humility or of being proud. Proverbs 16:5 says, "The Lord detests all the proud of heart. Be sure of this, they will not go unpunished." Wow, that's a pretty good motivation to not be proud, but to seek to be humble. Proverbs 16:18 says, "Pride goes before destruction, a haughty spirit before a fall." So keep that in mind when you're starting to get proud about something. It might not last too long. As usual, Jesus gives us the ultimate example of the word that we're talking about. In Matthew 11:28 through 30, he said, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart. And you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." Here, Jesus, the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, is humble in heart. And Philippians 2:5 through 8 goes on to say more about his humility. It says, "In your relationships with one another, have the same mindset as Christ, who, being in very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be used to his own advantage. Rather, he made himself nothing by taking the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness. And being found in appearance as a man, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to death, even death on a cross." He humbled himself by becoming obedient. So how do we develop humility? Well, I think first of all, it starts with seeking God's help. One of my favorite verses in the Bible, Psalm 139:28 and 29 says, "Search me, God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there is any offensive way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting." I think we need to go to God first of all and have him reveal to us if pride is an issue, if it's something that we need to work on. And I think we all can seek to develop humility even further, but go to him for his help first of all. Proverbs 15:33 says, "Wisdom's instruction is to fear the Lord, and humility comes before honor." So again, fearing the Lord, seeking him, seeking humility. I think we choose then to humble ourselves. 2 Chronicles 7:14, and this is God speaking, "If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and I will forgive their sin and will heal their land." Boy, there's a lot packed into that verse and a lot appropriate for us nowadays. But the thing that I wanted to focus on there is just the idea of humbling ourselves. In Matthew 6, verses 5 through 6, it says, "When you pray, do not be like those who only pretend to be holy. They love to stand and pray in the synagogues and on the street corners. They want to be seen by other people. What I'm about to tell you is true. They have received their complete reward. When you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who can't be seen. Your Father will reward you because he sees what you do secretly." And all this, though this doesn't especially talk about the word humility, I think it does give a good example of putting humility into practice, of not needing to stand up in front of a bunch of people and hear how wonderful of a prayer you are, but just going to God in private, just you and him, knowing that he hears you. And that's not to say there's not a place to pray in public, that we should, but it's not with the idea of being acknowledged or recognized as being someone who is this wonderful person who can pray, but rather that you're just going to the Lord and seeking him. Peter, I think it's 1 Peter, I didn't write it down, 5 verses 5 and 6 says, "In the same way, you who are younger, submit yourselves to your elders. All of you, clothe yourselves with humility toward one another, because God opposes the proud, but shows favor to the humble. Humble yourselves, therefore, under God's mighty hand, that he may lift you up in due time." And I like the idea here of clothing yourselves with humility, of actually putting it on. It's not something that just happens, it's something that you choose to pursue and to put on. And James 4:10 also says, "Humble yourselves before the Lord, and he will lift you up." So God will do the elevating after we humble ourselves. We don't need to worry about being, the public recognition that we might receive because of something that we're doing. Do it with the right attitude, with humility, and eventually God will lift you up. I think we also can put others first as we seek to be humble. Philippians 2, verses 1 through 4 say, "Therefore, if you have any encouragement from being united with Christ, if any comfort from his love, if any common sharing in the Spirit, if any tenderness and compassion, then make my joy complete by being like-minded, having the same love, being one in spirit and of one mind. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of others." And Ephesians 4:2 says, "Be completely humble and gentle. Be patient, bearing with one another in love." I think these are just more outworkings of being humble, is how you are patient and able to bear with others and to put their needs above your own. So some of the results then of having humility, the verses we've already looked at, although I was focusing on the humility side of it, they did also mention the results, such as God gives honor, forgiveness, reward, a lifting up. Verses Proverbs 3:34 and James 4:6, at least in the King James Version, both say, "For God resists the proud and gives grace to the humble." Grace that we so much all need. Other versions refer to the word favor. And Isaiah 62:2 says, "These are the ones I look on with favor, those who are humble and contrite in spirit, and who tremble at my word." God looks on us in favor when we have humility. Proverbs 11:2 says, when pride comes, then comes disgrace, but with humility comes wisdom. And I think that this, partially at least, refers to the wisdom of how to be humble. One question that I think we often struggle with is, what do you do with compliments for something that you've done well? Maybe you have a special ability for sewing or baking or singing or playing an instrument, or maybe you have a spiritual gift that you use, such as teaching or showing mercy or giving or administration, which I believe is my spiritual gift. I think there's a right way and a wrong way to acknowledge compliments. And a good example of the wrong way, my grandchildren all are musically inclined, and so they've been involved in choirs and more recently in learning to play instruments. And when one of them was young, I think probably about 5 or 6 years old, they had been in a little concert and we'd gone to it, and afterwards I went up to them and I said, "Oh, you did a great job on your solo." And their response was, "I know," and that's very innocent and matter of fact. I mean, they knew they had done a good job, but they hadn't yet learned the appropriate way to respond to a compliment by at least saying thank you. And I think we can go to the other extreme and not even want to acknowledge a compliment because we feel like we are being humble. But I read several years ago, and I don't remember where it was, but the person was talking about when we don't acknowledge a compliment, it's like we're not valuing the person's opinion and basically saying that they are lying, that that can't possibly be true. And so I know that you don't want to do that. So I think that we can appropriately say thank you, acknowledge the compliment, but then if you have an opportunity to also add something like, well, I'm grateful that I have an opportunity to use the gifts that God has given me, and turn the praise back to Him and acknowledge Him and the fact that He has given you that ability or that gift. And I think that's fine. That's appropriate. You're valuing the person's opinion, but you're also giving the praise back to God. So I'd like to end with Psalm 25:9, where it says, "He guides the humble in what is right and teaches them His way." So as we have seen tonight, as we follow Jesus' example, as we choose to humble ourselves and put others first, then we'll be in a better position to hear God's voice and to follow His way and allow Him to work through us. So next week we're going to be looking at a word that is sort of related to humility, contentment. So I hope that you'll join us then. But until then, may God bless you and have a good evening.